Sal, actually, no, I wasn't live because I boomered the whole hell out of it. I'd said hi to you and everything. This is local coverage. This is local coverage. I couldn't find Law and Crime yet because they're being ridiculous, but this should be live, and when they come back, we will be here. I started a little early because this judge invariably seems to like to start 5 minutes early just to confuse YouTubers, I think. I think that's the only reason. Or he too would like to get out of here on Friday early. I don't know. I have a feeling this jury was like, "Do you wanna stay here over the weekend?" And everyone was like, "Hell to the no." But that was just me. I don't know. You tell me, chat, was anyone else really shocked at how quickly um, the verdict came back? Because it was super hella fast. And just a quick update, kind of housekeeping stuff for me. I will be doing a video of the Wild Bill, sentencing for tomorrow, so probably before Stabby Day, I will probably set it up to come out in the afternoon, and then I will probably also do a video about whether Carly Russell will be, sentenced for all of her shenanigans, and maybe she deserves a murder board of her own and possibly a granny if we really are honest with ourselves. That was a whole lot of what in the actual world are you thinking? Yeah, I'm all I can say is Texas is weird. Uh, Texas is an odd place. This is one of the few trials that I've actually seen. Hello, Pixie. Hello, Kim and Matt and Ed Gein. Um, I don't know if Texas is one of those places that does it immediately. I feel like, I know Texas was involved with the Ronald Burgos 7 other names, but I thought that was because it was a, death penalty case. I guess maybe it's just standard practice. Ah, it's law in that state. Okay. Yeah, this isn't a death penalty case as far as I know, but it could be something that's they're required to do by statute, just like some states allow jurors to ask questions and some states don't. It might just be one of those things. So we are just here waiting for the judge and jury to come back from lunch. I honestly thought it was gonna take just a few hours because if it were let's say if it were me, Jamie, and Baker, it would take at least 3 hours for us to decompress with all the stuff that we would have to say, like, "Oh my gosh, this is so crazy," and, "Oh lord, what in the world?" No, I believe he's facing life in prison. As far as I know, that is what he is facing, and I think what they're looking at now is it does well, yeah, now in Dallas, they seem to be efficient. In southern Texas, it seems like they are I don't know, maybe it was just hot that week. Yeah, yeah, it was the first time they could talk to each other. That's what I had to remember, in the Letitia Stalk trial because it seemed so open and shut to me, and it was one of the first trials that I actually streamed, and it was really, um, very kind of discouraging when they didn't get the verdict right away because you thought, "Well, goodness gracious, it's right there straight for anyone to see. Yeah, she did it. She all but did it." Yeah, and that's what I don't like about the state and then the federal government getting a bite at the pie. I don't as a pre-law person, I don't get it, but it seems like it would be double jeopardy. I don't know. It just seems pretty shady. For an example, regardless of how you feel about the, George Floyd thing, they had a contingency the federal government had a contingency and plan that should he have gotten off on state charges, they would have been right, "Oh, the Fed has already" well, Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't get a military tribunal too. Matt's well, of course they did. I mean, because why not spend more federal money on someone who's already going to be in jail? Yeah, I did not know. I kind of came into this a little blind, um, watched, the great little video that oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but that chapter did. He's so hilarious with the life insurance stance. Oh, he got 25 years on federal. Yep, he crossed state lines. Well, that's good. I mean, I I feel it's a hard case because you feel sorry and you can understand the very human aspect of falling in love and, uh, you know, all the crazy things that love makes you do, but then you really just cannot co-sign with some of the craziness that he didn't even question. And let me go over to Discord and let people know that we are still on the penalty phase. One of the bajillion things on my computer screen. Do, do, do. Up on my computer screen just popped up a giant kangaroo picture because I was in an Australian page and I'm like, "Holy crap." Phase has a PH, not an AF. Mo. Hello, Wendy. Hello, Salvador, Gigi, Kim, Mats. And then I will warn you guys that if this goes to 4 p.m., I will have to stop this. I will try to do a stream in the morning at 2 times. But I do have to go pick up uh, youngest of the daughters. I see. I'm glad when all of my kiddos are here. It makes me feel loved. Yeah, it's kinda like my children. Okay, so Ed Gein says there's 2 interesting ideas that may come up now. 1, he was a good shot. He said he put the bullets where he wanted them. 2, he shot in the crotch. That's jealousy to me. Yeah, jealousy or revenge. I mean, if I will be right back. I'm going to shut my door. Well, it wasn't a farting cat this time. Just boys that were upset about a car race. Yeah, it doesn't rise to the level of crazy. If Hello.
Hi.
They were out Jamie, was it even 30 minutes? I sat at the
Uh,
pharmacy longer.
I think Baker timed it at like maybe an hour, a little over an hour. But it took them like 30 seconds to read it. They like came back and were like guilty. And that was it.
I know, it was crazy. And I couldn't find, Law and Crime doesn't even have a stream up yet, but the local channel has one, so figured because I don't know if you've noticed this, Jamie, but this judge
Oh,
likes to start, like
it's on the second channel. You're gonna need to subscribe to that channel because they have 2 channels with
Oh, of course
file.
they do.
Yeah, I
What's the
discovered that.
second channel called? Is it called Law and
Uh,
Crime 2?
let me send it to you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was wondering how you guys were finding these things, and I'm like, no idea. Yeah, it was just nutty. I mean, I figured it was going to come back fairly quickly because I didn't think it was going to be a whole big, like, who done it? Oh, thank you, reindeer and everyone. I love the collective chat smartness. Yeah, okay. I guess I subscribe to both, but I don't look at both. Who knows? We can only somewhat assume what Mo does.
Okay, found it. Yeah, because that's how I was finding like all these oddball trials. And I was like, they have two
Yeah,
channels.
I definitely need to do that because I like the oddball trials, and you always find the best ones.
I don't know, man. I was get lucky.
Well, this one was really good. I like this one a lot.
Yeah. I had no idea it was going to be this way.
Yeah, I am wondering what all they're gonna try to bring in because I have a feeling they're gonna try to bury this guy.
Yeah.
And and it's hard because at points you have real big
They probably
sympathy for
talked to him
him.
too. Like, all you can hope for is you get a good sentence, dude. Maybe some
Yeah,
parole.
well, and the chat was saying that he's already been sentenced
Thank you,
in
Sheriff. Y'all may be
federal
seated. Miss Mitchell, call the
prison
next
for
witness,
25
please.
years.
Oh, really? I thought that was just pending. Because he has
I
gun charges against him pending.
Before you have a seat, could you please turn, face me, and raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to
oh,
give
for the
will be
love of Cheetos, use microphones.
responding to questions from Ms. Mitchell, perhaps also Mr. Sanchez to your left. You may proceed whenever
Oh,
you're ready.
Sal says no, that was Derek Chauvin. But he does have pending gun charges. This guy does.
Oh, okay.
Federal. The wife got life, no parole, I believe. I know life.
Kelly, I'm sorry, Kelly. You're Kelly. Melanie. Sorry about that. I was gonna say something.
Where am I?
Melanie, can you please state your name for the record and spell your last name? Spell
Why
your whole name.
is okay?
It's Melanie.
Let me. That, all right, let's see what I'm doing here, because that's always a good question.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
You want to be sassy?
technical boomery difficulties. Please stick with us while we figure this one out. All right, now we should be good. I was getting an echo and I had two windows open somehow. However, I did that. Come on. There we go.
Thank you, Sheriff. Y'all may be seated. Miss Mitchell, call your next witness, please.
Melanie Blackburn.
Good afternoon. Before you have a seat, could you please turn, face me, and raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Yes.
Please have a seat. Responding to questions from Ms. Mitchell, perhaps also Mr. Sanchez to your left. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Wonderful. Good job, Sal.
May I present, Your Honor?
Hey, if you can get those things, we can get the letters from this trial.
Yeah.
You know, it's entertainment. Whatever it's something to watch that isn't The View.
Kelly, I'm sorry, Kelly. You're Kelly. Melanie. Sorry about that. I was gonna say something you can. Melanie, can you please state your name for the record and spell your whole name?
Okay, it's Melanie, Melony, last name Blackburn, Blackburn.
And Ms. Blackburn, up on the screen, that's James Faith Jr., is that correct?
That is.
Okay, and how did you know him?
First, he was my boss. He was my director before COVID. We had some reorgs, and then he moved to a different group, but still kept in contact with me. Second, he was a mentor and a friend.
All right. How long did you know Ms. James?
And since the time of our merger, when they moved to Dallas, that's when he became my director, and our group moved under him.
But even after you were not, he was not your direct supervisor, y'all still kept in touch?
Right, we did keep in touch. I actually talked to him the Thursday, the week prior, before he was murdered.
And what were you guys talking about?
He called just to check in on me. We were all locked down at American, and he knew that was probably driving me crazy. So checked in on me, made sure that my husband and I were doing okay. My husband also works for American. Making sure we're okay, making sure that I was taking care of myself along with all the work that we were doing to try to prepare for that new world that we were living in. Yeah.
Particularly it's the airlines particularly hard too.
Right. And the group I was in, we had a lot of changes we had to make to accommodate passengers flying. So he knew that I was working more than I was supposed to be probably. So,
was that a common trait of his to check on people?
it was, yes. He
Weird that it's
check on
where's
us
his family?
anytime.
I like we've got dance instructor and
Now a
coworker.
coworker? Yeah, like where's this guy's family?
I mean, maybe the daughter couldn't handle it. Maybe the daughter was like, "Look, I can't with all the BDSM and all of this. It's a circus. I don't even want to be there." Because I wouldn't come if I wouldn't go to this trial if I was the daughter. Yeah, the husband was, I mean, they were well off, which is why I was confused that they were in a house with like a AC guard next to it. But yeah. I would think so.
I mean, he'd see an email come through at 1 o'clock in the morning, or know that we're on vacation, or even just to say, "Hey, did your daughter do this?" Like things that we would talk about. There were a lot of times before we moved to our new office buildings that it would be him, another one of my coworkers, and me were generally the last three in our area that were still there. So there were a lot of times we'd talk about the latest technology, what's happening in my daughter's lives and Amber's life. A lot of times you'd get a text, she just landed, I got to go. So it was always, we had that business connection, but we also had that personal connection.
And speaking of that, would he invite coworkers or people he managed over to his house?
He would. There's several times he had meetings at his house that everyone would go. I went over one time for a dinner meeting.
How would you describe him as a manager?
As a manager, he was very fair. He would fight for his employees. He would always have your back and left you to be the one making the decisions. He might kind of guide you to tell you this is the way it's going, or.
And he was pretty high up, would you say? Like, what was his title?
He was a director of customer technology.
And he had a lot of employees under him, correct?
He did, probably around 300 at one time. Mm-hmm.
And did you feel like you still had, his employees still had a connection with him, even though there's 300 of them?
They did. They did. There were a group of us that, like I said, he'd always just check on us and make sure we're okay.
You were talking about, to me earlier about charities. Can you explain what?
Yeah, and we were very passionate.
No.
When US Air and American
trials
merged,
anymore.
passionate about making that connection, so it's not an us versus them with the IT community. So we would do charity events, we do quarterly events, try to bring that psychological safety to everyone and to make us one. The biggest event that we had was the last in-person event in 2019, which was our holiday party. We would always have Toys for Tots, and then generally like Animal Angel Tree or some other organization as well. Things that we were all passionate about, kids and animals. So we would have raffle tickets. Everyone coming would have the chance to have raffle tickets. We would wear that one in particular, Jamie always at Christmas wore a Christmas jacket. And then from a Christmas Story, yes. I cannot remember that. From A Christmas Story. And then I had a little holiday dress on. And so he was the MC, and we were going around and we were getting people to buy the raffle tickets. That year we had 4 huge Toys for Tots boxes overflowing. And we also did.
Okay. I guess I'm a horrible, horrible person, but I don't care about this.
Me neither, to be honest with you. It's not doing
The
anything.
coat drive
Like,
for Addison High School because
You
We're
did
very
miss the
connected
dance
with
instructor.
Addison High
He is
School,
before lunch and on
and do a mentor
Baker, the end
program
of Baker
there.
Stream.
He was the cheerleader.
He was.
Supported his team.
Oh yeah, he supported everyone, and that year we had the biggest donations that we ever had, and it was nice being able to deliver that check to Toys for Tots for those.
Would you consider him kind of goofy?
Oh yes, he was very goofy. He didn't like a silent room, so if we were in a meeting and there was a lull, he would always have something funny or witty to say. He'd pop up in meetings once we started with the Teams meetings, pop up and he'd have like a disguise on or something funny to make you laugh.
You also talked about after his death, like how the American Airlines, how you guys all came together. Can you explain that to the jury?
Yeah, immediately after we learned of his death, which was right that same morning, we jumped into how can we help Amber and Jennifer? How can we help their family? We knew mom and dad would be in, we knew sister would be in. So we arranged a meal train and collected money. Well, we didn't arrange the meal train. We collected the money to donate to the meal train. So we were able to donate a week's worth of meals for the family, along with donating to the GoFundMe and other things.
I think you also said there's just like sort of a chat too.
We do.
Hundreds of employees were.
We created a Teams channel chat, and it's pages and pages of just memories from people who have moved on from our group, just saying nothing but wonderful things about him and his mentorship.
I know several
Oh my God,
coworkers
thanks.
have reached out to me to say how
We did.
they wanted to speak on him.
Yes.
Did he have any, just really quick, anything particular hobbies or any particular memory that you have of him that stands out?
He loved the Green Bay Packers. Even had, like I said, he had the Christmas Story jacket. He had a Green Bay Packers jacket he wore with his jersey. He loved to cook. He loved sharing his knowledge on the latest technologies with you. He really loved life and loved to travel, and he loved Amber.
Thank you so much, Ms. Blackburn. I appreciate you being here.
Thank
I'll
you.
pass the witness.
I have no questions, Your Honor.
And you may be finally excused. Please be careful of any of the wires. Call your next witness, please.
At this time, you're on to the state rests.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Sanchez, what says the defense?
That's it.
Well, I mean, what are they gonna say? Like, the guy that got killed was awesome, and this guy was a ding dong.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, I'm glad that she's just not hammering it in like freaking South Texas. Oh my gosh. Eh, Well, I don't think the daughter wanted to come, and I honestly think that she probably talked to the daughter, talked to the mom, talked to the sister, and they said, "We don't feel comfortable coming to this." Maybe they showed up to the wife's one, the federal one, and said their piece there. Because if I had to choose which one I was gonna go to and spend my mental energy on, I'd tell Jennifer what I thought of her. But that's just me.
I don't know. I just find it weird that his family's not there. Even so, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
even
unless he's an orphan. I mean, but I don't know that.
yeah, this is never gonna die, is it?
No, it never will.
Well, as long as we know. Oh Lord, who are they gonna call? Please let it be Creepy McCreeperston. Let it be his.
What if it's his
Before you
strange?
have a seat on the witness stand, would you please face me and raise your hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Is this the? Oh no, it's the culture guy, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't think
You
we've
may
seen.
proceed whenever you're ready.
Did we see him? I don't know.
I don't think so. Maybe I don't
Full
know.
name for the record.
His
My name is Philip Stephen
he's
Heil,
in prison.
Philip Stevenheil.
Phil, where are you from? Can I call you Phil?
You may.
Okay. Where are you from, Phil?
I grew up in Lubbock, graduated high school in Galveston, Texas.
And how do you know Darrin Lopez?
I first met Darrin in 2002 in the Special Forces qualification course.
I know what the hell is up with these people. Like, just it's the 70s. I'm gonna rock my male necklace and unbutton my shirt. What the hell is that? And he has a flippin' attitude up to Nya. Already an attitude slumping in his chair.
Did you serve with him?
Yes.
We met him in 2002 in the qualification course. Were you training at the same time? Were you ahead of him? How did that work?
So he was actually a little bit ahead in the medical course.
Yeah, I put ice
I'll
cubes.
get into it, is a little bit longer than the weapons sergeant course. I was weapons sergeant. We were training on the range. Darrin was providing medical coverage for the range while we were doing our weapons training. So we did that training.
You're
After
right,
that,
Bunny.
we
He
kind
can
of stayed in
unbutton all
contact a
his
little
shirt.
bit, but very busy in the qualification course
Men
on
can
different,
show
doing
cleavage.
different jobs. So I didn't run into Darrin again until I got to
Yes.
5th Special Forces Group, deployed to Kuwait,
Or those
was
basketball.
assigned a team. I walked into the tent where my new team was and saw Darrin. And I was like, oh, hey, what's going on? I hadn't talked to him in a while through the training. So
From that point on, did you serve with him in combat?
yes, we were on the same operational detachment Alpha, which is a small 12-man team. Not always 12, but that's where you're supposed to round out. We served together for probably just over 3 years through our first 3 combat deployments.
Do you think
in
that's how
Iraq.
it works?
And that was with the special forces.
Yes, as Green Berets, members of an operational detachment Alpha.
No, what had happened was if he was doing some dishes, taking out the trash, then
There has to be some actions involved.
yeah, again, doing the laundry, saying,
Yeah.
honey, would you like me to pick something up? You didn't ask me to do anything, but I feel like there's a chore that I could do for you.
Can you get that over there? You reach
Yeah.
for that over there.
Like,
Our team number was 575.
Me and Mo are
Like this
simple
special
women.
we
don't
just want
what kind
trash
of things
picked
did you
up.
have to do in the
Yeah.
special forces when you were serving with Darrin?
All right. Yes, Farrell,
Uh,
go.
On
Have
deployments
fun.
or just
Deployments.
overall?
Overall.
Wow, there's a lot. I will keep it extremely brief. There's a lot of things that a special forces team can do, mainly in the first deployment. We were tasked with finding I don't know if everybody's still familiar with the DECA 55, the top 55 members of the former regime. Well, then there was lists below that. So we had these lists and we were tasked with sort of finding these individuals, apprehending these individuals and bringing them in so that they could be questioned with regard to the whole weapons of
It
mass
is very true,
destruction
Matt.
thing,
That's why
or
we like tall
any
men, so they
information that
can dust
the
in the
government could get
corners.
to help
And that's not a euphemism. We
build
just
a new
want
government
cobwebs
or
taken
guide
out.
them.
And
So,
again, not a euphemism.
Part of the search for Saddam Hussein.
I mean, everybody was looking for him. Everybody. Nobody really had to be tasked. I know there were certain units that were specifically tasked with that hunt, but everybody was looking for information on him. So,
This is dangerous work.
yes.
Did people get injured?
We could get him.
Yes, fortunately for us on that deployment, no one
You'd
in
probably
our
be
team was injured, but there were enemy combatants that we engaged at several times and were engaged. So yes, it was dangerous, and we had to engage people and close with, kill the enemy.
And you are familiar with Darrin's decorated past as a soldier, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty familiar.
You've actually looked at his military records
Yes.
in order to be able to explain to the jury, to the jury, the awards he received as a special forces soldier.
Right, just to kind of refresh the memory a little bit, because it doesn't quite work as well as it used to, but just to get some of the dates and things together. But
I'll show you Defendant's Exhibit number 8. Does it look familiar to you?
yes,
You had an opportunity to look at them before you testified, correct?
correct.
The tabs that have been put on there are in colors. The red ones, I believe, are awards you received,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, and also you brought a demonstrative aid that can help you explain to the jury the medals that he's received, correct?
Yes. Actually, we were able to get one of Darrin's old uniforms that was kind of together as it was, as he kind of left it years ago in probably 2013-ish when he was retiring. So we have that.
Okay, guys, again, I appreciate and applaud his service. He did what other people wouldn't. And yeah, I mean, if if all the chores were done, I mean, fun. But we've heard about his service. I'm not negating that, but he still made a stupid choice.
Some awards on it.
Your Honor, at this time I would move to enter into evidence Defendant's Exhibit number 8, the certified public record of Darrin Lopez's military service.
Any objection? No objection. Defense aid submitted for all purposes. You may publish.
I'll put him right here for that one. I'll put him up here. If I may get his uniform, Your Honor, as a demonstrative aid.
Any objection from the state for this being displayed to the jury as demonstrative aid? No objection.
In my opinion, it's more of the latter and not the first. I think the first would have been better in the saying he was incapacitated by the, TBI would have been better at the guilty, not guilty phase. I feel like this is just like he was a decorated officer. Let's give him a break. He did something dumb, but he did a lot of good for our country. So let's kind of, give him some slack. Yeah, that's again, as a person who knows various people from the military, they didn't go out and oh my God, they have a half a kin. A torsakin, if you will.
What?
You put it in the chair. Everybody see it in the chair.
Well, they have a mannequin, but I'm going to call it a torsakin. And he was a small man. Because that uniform. Sir, do
Now,
not cry for your uniform. You
This
cried
is his
more
actual
for your uniform than the man you
Yes, sir.
killed.
Okay. And who had saved this? Did Darrin's have it in his possession? Where'd you get it from? Do you remember?
I believe it was recovered by some friends out of his house.
Um, can you briefly describe for the jury what the medals are on that uniform, if you can?
Yeah, briefly, there are a number of awards you can get for different things. I guess some of the main ones would be the Bronze Star for service, and there's 2 awards. You see a little appurtenance there denoting another award, his Purple Heart that he got in the dual VVID of vehicle improvised explosive device explosion. And you see a meritorious service medal, and I say medals, these are just the ribbons that represent the medals because we don't always wear the medals.
Let me just stop you there. So for example, this is the Purple Heart medal that he received when he was blown up in that explosion, correct?
Correct.
So the bar that's on the uniform actually comes with inserted here in the medal itself, right?
Correct. And there are certain uniforms you can wear your full medals on.
Oh, I love Shelley.
So usually, or a lot of times, you don't wear the actual medal when you walk around. You just wear the bar showing that you did receive the Purple Heart.
Correct.
And if you can describe.
And little known fact, y'all, you have to buy the bar, and the bar can be anywhere from $10 to $16. And you get to have to pay someone, a tailor usually, to make sure that the bar is put on correctly. Our government is awesome. We love it.
Briefly, I'm sure we'll have another witness talk about it, but briefly, that Purple Heart was for his injuries for what occasion?
So that was in 2005, in September. We were preparing for a mission that night. 2 of our vehicles we had to work on, and we wanted to take them out just right outside. We were stationed on an Army base. We had our own little section in back, but we had to take the vehicles out, make sure they were
Baker,
running
we are
good.
learning that if you don't do it
before we went
correctly
out
and
on a mission
smartly,
that night.
no.
So Darrin, Nate, another medic of ours, Greg Underwood, and John Terrell were the 4 guys that just took the vehicles out of the front gate, went out for a little bit, maybe 600, 700 meters down the road, and they were going to turn around and come back. When they got out there, there were 2 dump trucks that were stopped on the side of the road. There were some Iraqi police there, a lot of people screaming, coming up to the trucks and the guys saying, "Hey, these trucks are stolen. You know, you need to, can you help out? Can you do something?" So our guys were there and decided to help investigate this. So they started moving in. At that point, like I said, we were still back on the base. So things go on. We hear a very loud explosion. It rattled the base, rattled our tents. We go outside, look, you can see the smoke plume rising in the sky. We know it's the general direction that our guys were, the route they were driving, just a little out and back. So we start trying to raise them on the radio, and we can't get anyone. So we immediately start to put our gear on, get our other trucks, get in there, and we are going to go out and make sure our guys are okay. About the time, there was a lot of other things happening. It was very chaotic. About the time we started to go out, our 2 trucks, pretty beat up and broken, come in. Darrin is coherent, but I mean, I guess it's cliche, but you can say the training had kicked in. He gets out. He's like, "We need to get Greg out of here." Greg was conscious, but very badly injured. We'd already called for a medevac. We're pulling him out. Greg goes on a medevac. John Terrell goes on a medevac bird, gets out. We knew there were concussive injuries just from the way that Nate and Darrin were acting, but we were on that Army base and they had some medical personnel there. So we kind of held off sending them. We sent the most apparent and more wounded in Greg and John out.
And this here is the part of his records where it actually shows that he really did get a Purple Heart, right?
Yes.
As opposed to what, a fake Purple Heart?
You yourself were able to provide us with some pictures of the aftermath of that of that explosion? Was it you that provided those pictures?
Yes, it was.
See, and the funny thing is if he had gone to any of his army buddies and said, this, and this is happening, they'd be like, bullshit. Show me your picture. How hot is she? He shows her Hagatha from the swamp creature. They're like, no flippin' way.
I'm going to show you what's been marked. These are going to be a little bit of hours. I'm going to call them out.
She pled
Attendance
guilty, so she
exhibit
just went
number
right to the jail.
14, 15, 16,
So no trial,
17,
Shelley.
18,
Well, let me see if it's televised though, because
20,
general generally
21,
isn't, but I
22,
can see.
26, and 27.
We have her.
Oh, I'm sorry, and 28.
You can watch her
Um,
police stuff on
these are
Saturday.
the
though.
pictures that you provided
Yeah, I
us,
think
from
Baker
that
was
day that you're
gonna
talking
do
about the
this,
explosion.
do that on
Yes, they are.
Stab Your Day.
And is everything depicted
Yeah, that's what I'm
accurately?
saying. They would have
Yes.
sent a forward brigade of old retired guys to be like, no, Hagatha is just married and bored.
Those exhibits are admitted, you may publish.
Thank you. Now, this wasn't just some little explosion, was it?
No, sir.
These were two big trucks. And what were they filled with?
So the EOD report, after the next day, you had two big dump trucks, each filled with 4 55-gallon drums of ammonium nitrate explosive covered in gravel.
Ah,
What does this picture show here?
That is one of the vehicles that was close to the dump trucks when they exploded, and it has actually been blown across. You can see in the front there, there's the canal area here in the front, and then the car in the back. It was actually blown 40 meters or so, probably across that canal to land on the other bank.
What do we see here in this picture?
It looks like one of the possible axles to either the dump truck or trailer. I mean, there were several vehicles out there, and it was just a mess in the blast area. And
What do we see
as
here?
I said before, there were some Iraqi police already kind of on site, and that is one of their police vehicles.
Were some of those police officers killed?
So our 4 guys were the only 4 people that left that blast site alive.
Do you estimate how many people died in the blast?
Again, with EOD, and that they figured there were probably about 19 people in the vicinity of the blast.
Same police car?
Yes, sir.
Same cars as their view?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sanchez, could you call out?
those are some hairy hands. Oh my gosh.
Exhibit number 17. And
Is that the one
and
guy?
exhibit number 18.
Yeah.
Easel. Yeah, he looked like it.
Defense exhibit number 21. What do we see there?
That looks like some of what was left of one of the dump trucks.
So this was a full dump truck
Yes,
before the blast.
yes, before the blast.
So after that happened, you said that Darrin was able to get Greg out safely.
Yes, well, he actually had to resuscitate Greg. Greg was non-responsive after the blast when Darrin came to, so Darrin had to restart breathing, restart heart, get him in the truck, and then the 4 of them were able to get back. John had a lot of shrapnel wounds, but was still able to move, whereas Greg was not. So Darrin had to resuscitate him.
So you also pointed out earlier the gold star that he received. Do you know what that was for?
Which one? Oh, the Bronze Star?
I'm sorry, the Bronze Star. I'm
The
sorry.
Bronze Star, right, the Bronze Star, and then with the second award, those were given for exemplary service during a couple of deployments. I think one was the first deployment, and then one was on the third deployment. So they're typically given for exemplary service for a particular period of time.
So on the records here, where there's a yellow tab, that's for the evidence from the military that he did in fact receive a Bronze Star medal, correct?
Correct.
And all the red tabs that are on there are for different types of awards that he received throughout his service.
Yes, okay, that's correct.
And the beret that's attached to the uniform, is that something you all wear all the time in your service? Or?
Contrary to popular belief in movies, those are only worn when we are in garrison service. So when we're back here
I
in
know.
the States,
In the same thing.
in our uniforms around, that is the green beret that's worn there. Typically, we don't wear them on deployment when we're out doing whatever it is we're doing.
It's almost like you don't want to be a target.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of I'm torn because I feel bad that I want to care more about this. I really
Yeah,
want to
those
care
are-
more about this.
Typically reserved for garrison.
I mean, I know they're
And
only
that
doing
is
it for
the
like
headgear, and
character,
that is the symbol
you know.
for the 5th Special Forces group on
But-
the flash, the black and multicolored.
Before testifying today, did you somehow do the math of the magnitude of that explosion?
Yes,
And what was it?
it came out to roughly 4,866 pounds of ammonium nitrate explosive.
And if you compare that to the Oklahoma City bombing, how did it compare?
Almost exactly the same amount.
Now, let me show. Let me show some other photos that you provided. Defense exhibit number 23, 25.
Dragon Lady Lawyer is
28,
writing
and
shit down
24.
like don't
You also
care,
provided these pictures.
won't care. First question out of okay, who wants to bet that the first question out of her mouth is going to be, so does an explosion in Iraq make it impossible for you to detect whether your girlfriend's lying about gangbangs?
I hope that's her first question.
Because it seems like that's just going to be the way she's
Yes.
going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel bad for this guy. I still do.
Oh, maybe that one.
I feel bad, but it's again, it's like the Adam and Eve thing. I mean, she tempted him, he tempted him, but he still made that choice, reached out his arm and ate that apple.
I know. It's just still.
He's such a dum-dum. Like if he'd asked any of his friends, any dude friends, like he went up to Baker, said, "Hey, I have this girl and she is having this terrible time."
And she refuses to go to the police. And every time I say,
Yeah.
I'm going to the police, she doesn't want to go. He'd say, get the F away from her.
Yeah. All of his friends would be like, the hell, don't do crazy. Don't do crazy at all. Stay the hell away from crazy.
23, 25, 28, and 24. Your Honor.
No objection. Darrin, didn't you make publish?
Defense exhibit number 23. Is that Darrin in that picture?
That is.
And who are the individuals that are around?
Those are some local national
Sal.
Iraqi children. And then
Oh,
Uh,
no. I have some thoughts. They are not kind. So I will be quiet.
can't remember exactly who the other individual is, but they're local nationals, and I think if I remember correctly,
Should
that's
he be
probably
that close to
around,
children?
Yarmouk Hospital in Baghdad. So it's a local national hospital.
Sir, that smile when you're looking at the
And
children
Darrin
picture.
was
Jesus.
a medic at this time, right?
Correct.
Did he have a lot of interaction with children when you were in Iraq?
And not just children, but the hospitals in general.
I love you.
One of
more. I
one of the
adore
things
you.
that we do as a team is to provide medical services if needed, or help local
He
indigenous
was.
populations out with
Not a good look, everybody.
anything we can. And most of the time, a good way to do it is medical, because our medics are very highly trained. So he was very involved with Yarmouk Hospital, and then several other areas. Anytime we would see a local national, or if somebody needed treated and we were there, then he would provide assistance.
Defense exhibit number 28, that's him treating one of your comrades.
That is Darrin treating a
Hey, that's a good
Kurdish
friend. I mean, that's a
Peshmerga
good
fighter,
woman to tell the guy,
that
like, hey,
were
run a
assigned to
hell.
us to help
Mhm.
with security during our trip in OAF2. And I believe that one
I
he had
know,
caught some
Dennis. It was
shrapnel,
crazy.
and Darrin was doing a little minor surgery to get the shrapnel out and get him sewn up. So he was,
Yeah.
I guess what we would call
We were
a
surprised
partner
too.
force.
And poor Baker trying to
Kurdish
scramble
Iraqi.
around, get a hold of Mo. It was a whole thing. And
I know,
It was him again.
Waited
we actually
longer
missed
in.
it. We had to replay it because we missed it too.
I know. I mean, I was waiting in the line at the pharmacy. It's like, damn it, damn it.
Now, this picture here, defendant's exhibit number 25. Is there
Okay, please
anything
let him look better
important
in
about
this picture, because
or something you remember about it? About the little girl?
And so this
tiny.
is the third trip. I
Why?
think on that one we were working, we did
I
a mission where we were
Why does
working
the
with some
daughter
civil
look super
affairs
scared?
people, Army, military, civil affairs. And in that particular operation, we'd come
Most
across
flattering.
this gentleman and his daughter. And I do not remember exactly what medical condition
would be
his daughter
weird.
had, but I remember him,
definitely
her
weird.
father, being very upset and trying to find some treatment and trying to find somebody that could treat them and help them. And Darrin kind of took it upon himself to help this man and his family and try and find something, get them in contact with someone, or find some way to get treatment for his daughter.
And he was able to do that.
I believe so, yes.
You had mentioned to me also that
Yeah,
Darrin
Twisted,
had
stop.
received,
They
something,
respected logic
conduct medal
puzzle of
or
Twisted.
something to that effect.
Right. So
You can tell the jury about that.
right, so the Army Good Conduct Medal is awarded every 3 years of good service, I guess you'd say. So no, you're not getting any trouble, no violations against the Uniform Code of Military Justice, basically keeping your nose clean. Every 3 years, you receive an Army Good Conduct Medal. And that's one right here on the end. I know it's hard to see. And then you get little clasps that you put on there for each successive award. That particular silver clasp with the knot denotes Darrin's 6th award for the Army Good Conduct Medal.
That's 18 years.
I mean, that's
18
great
years.
and all. He still killed a guy. I feel like this.
Just a few questions. Mr. Heil, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Darrin Lopez was discharged in 2013,
Yes, ma'am, I believe so.
the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you remember when?
I don't exactly remember when we were, I think my team was in Afghanistan at the time. So
Okay. And just to be clear, I mean, there's thousands of service people who have gone through explosions before.
you're correct.
Thousands of service people who have also been discharged disabled as well, correct?
You're correct.
Nothing further.
He'd be finally excused.
No, okay.
No objection.
Very good, sir. You may stand down. You excuse me for the
She
service.
is a eye roller.
Mr. Sanchez, before you call your next witness, or
Never heard of
perhaps
that
while they're coming up, you want to
Oh.
make sure that some of the exhibits are taken care of.
Yeah, get the mannequin out of here. We're confused. Like,
I believe I've handed back the pictures to the court.
I mean, I just do feel bad for him though.
I do. I want him to maybe possibly
great.
get. I don't know how state and federal work, so I don't know if like federal can. They can both go lenient on. Hell, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to do some digging to see if these are.
Before you have a seat, turn, face me, and raise your right hand.
I truly don't
Swear the
believe
testimony you're about to
in
give
on
will be the
anything.
truth.
I think he was
Yes, sir.
fooled.
Please have a seat.
Yeah.
That's my
Require the
final.
questions
I
from Mr. Sanchez.
Yeah, I think he was dumb. Well,
think he was dumb AF. And he
I
shouldn't have-
think he fooled himself. I think he saw things that were red flags, but he ignored them.
Absolutely.
So,
Sir, can you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Greg Underwood,
Yeah.
Gregunderwood.
I agree. I feel ultimately he's
I'm
probably
currently from just outside of Fort Campbell in
He'll be old.
Elmira, Tennessee. I'm
Yeah.
originally from St. Louis, Missouri.
You came here to testify for Darrin because you wanted the jury to know good things about him, correct?
Yes, yes, I do.
You understand that after everybody's testifying that they're going to go back in the deliberation room, decide what the just and proper sentence should be in this case. You understand that? Correct?
Yes, I do.
But you wanted to talk to the jury and talk to them about some experiences you've had with him, right?
Yes,
Now, you served with Darrin in Special Forces, right?
correct.
Okay. How long did you all serve together?
I met Darrin Lopez December of 2002, just before Christmas. He had just been assigned to ODA 575, and we were getting prepared to go to Iraq. We didn't know if we were going to invade. We didn't know what was going on, but he had been assigned as a medic to the team. I was the senior communications sergeant on the team at the time, and we were just coming back from schools and a lot of getting prepared right after Afghanistan. We'd been in Afghanistan up until April of that year, came back and got prepared, and we were refitting and outfitting to get ready to go in January to Iraq, or we were going to pre-position in Kuwait.
And you were in the car with him or truck when that explosion that we just saw the pictures of happened, correct?
We had two different vehicles. He was in the forward vehicle and I was in the second vehicle. The vehicles had a driver and a gunner on them at the time. There's usually 3 or more people in the truck, but that day we were taking the vehicles out. We had done some damage to one of the vehicles and repaired it. We needed to get it fixed.
Big
We needed to see
softy.
if we could get the vehicles up to speed just on the road a little bit. So we took them outside the front gate of the forward operating base we were on. And Darrin was in one of the lead vehicles.
And so you were behind him?
I was in the secondary vehicle, yes.
And is that when you were approaching those dump trucks?
On the way out of the gate, we were told by the front gate guards that, hey, just down the road, the local police have something going on. They've got a couple trucks that something's going on. I couldn't hear it very well because I was up in the turret of the second vehicle. Darrin, being a senior NCO, and the other gentleman, that John Terrell, they made the decision. Non-commissioned officer, sergeant. He was a senior sergeant. He made the decision that, they made the decision that we were going to go down there and take a look at it. And we drove down the road. We saw numerous police cars and we saw 2 large dump trucks. I say 5-ton dump trucks because that's just easier to say 5-ton. I don't know exactly the size of the dump trucks, but they were the size of the dump trucks you see going down the road here for construction daily. The 2 rear axles and the big dirt bucket on the back, I guess, the gravel bucket, whatever you want to call it.
So what happened?
We were there for just a couple of moments. We had noticed that the drivers of the vehicles that the police were talking to were in their, what we would call Sunday best, but over there, they're Friday best. And that automatically gave us the something's not right. I don't recall which one of us yelled, hey, we need to get out of here. But one of us yelled, hey, it's time to get out of here. Something's not right. Darrin and John were at the front vehicle. And about that time, there was a dump truck that was within just a couple of meters of them exploded. I was probably 50 to maybe 70 feet back, maybe a little bit less, but somewhere in there. But I could see the plume of everything going up. I immediately ducked down. I felt debris and everything coming down on me. The next thing, I stood up, I spun my gun around because it was time to pull out. My driver, Nate Coker, was in the truck or getting to the truck. And that's the last thing I can remember. And that's the last thing I truly have focus on for almost a month. But what I've heard from those three gentlemen that were there and everybody else that was there afterwards on the forward operating base, my team and other people, I was killed in that explosion. I was struck by metal and debris, split the helmet off my head. Darrin and Nate got a hold of me. I was not breathing. I had no heartbeat. Darrin proceeded to put a tube down my throat as he's trained, start pumping my chest till my heart started beating. And apparently he was having some trouble with that. I wasn't coming straight to. Sometime in there were artillery rounds that came in from our local FOB. They had heard the shock of the explosion and they thought that it was a launch towards them. They heard the shock, it knocked things down. They thought somebody had rocketed them, and that was where the rocket went off. They had, I think it's,
Let me slow you
sure.
down there. So, there's an explosion.
Yes,
You're dead.
I'm got for somewhere between 3 and 6 minutes that nobody had a clock, nobody was taking time, somewhere in that time frame, 3 to 6 minutes.
And while he's trying to save your life, more bombs are coming in, but it's because the military thought they.
Friendly fire thought that they were taking out a blast site that was attacking them at the time.
And then so what happened after that?
Darrin and Nate got me back into the truck. Darrin stayed with me while Nate was driving and kept making sure that I was okay. I'd come to it right there as these things start coming in, maybe the shock of the noise or whatever, but Darrin actually got my heart started. I was conscious, but I wasn't fully adherent to anything. So they took me back to the FOB and medevaced me out to Baghdad and then on to Landstuhl, Germany.
So you owe.
I owe that man my life. I owe that man my life 10 times over. And there's been times that we have stood together with near-death experiences on more than just that occasion. Neither one of us were wounded in those occasions because of the grace of God, but that man has stood next to me while artillery went off right above our head. Guns were fired with bullets passing by our head on God knows how many occasions. I've seen him save foreign troops that were just laying on the side that were being overlooked by other U.S. personnel, the other regular military units. They were taking care of U.S. soldiers first. Darrin ran a chest tube in a man that I saw later on in the day during the first deployment in Baghdad on our first couple of days there, that had he not put that chest tube in him, he would not have lived. He would have been dead. This was the enemy. These were men that were adamantly trying to kill all of us, blowing up tanks, had just been in huge ambushes that American soldiers had died. These guys were sitting there with whole.
I have thoughts. I have thoughts of a lot of things.
Let's hear it.
Well, okay, so he's over here going on and on about he saved a man that was just shooting his fellow countrymen, which, yay, great. But you you have a great moral compass and you're much more moral than everyone else that was, letting this guy who just shot their best friends die. Super. You also killed an innocent man. It's apples to oranges, and I'm really getting tired of it. But it could be that I'm just a Friday, and apparently we are all on our cycles this week. I don't know.
Holes and
To
bullet
be
wounds from
fair,
Americans in their chest.
he did think Jamie was evil. So
Yeah, I
throw it
know.
out there. But I get it. You can't just go around killing all the evil people, or I would have a pile of them in my backyard. No, but I get that. But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just
he had a mind frame that Jamie was evil and he was doing these evil things, but couldn't.
Yeah. It's just the whole thing that if you hadn't been a giant moron, none of this had to happen.
I know. Absolutely. And I think this is all they got is just like his military stories, you know, to like be like, look at how wonderful he is.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of things that we should do differently, and I'm just a mo on the internet, so God forbid anyone actually listen to me for ideas.
Darren took the
Me
time
either.
to
I
go
mean,
over and said,
I
hey,
know.
let's just go see
just
what's going
talking.
on. He wasn't told to go over there. He wasn't made to go over there. Nobody said, hey, Darren, we need you over here to work on these guys. Darren just wanted to go see, hey, let's go see what happened. We walked over. He saw the enemy sitting there and nobody was taking care of them. It's our job to take care of them too. But Darren made sure that I know of at least one of them that lived that wouldn't have. We saw him later at the prison camp, and maybe a day or two later. He was up walking around and he thanked us for his life. Thanked Darren specifically for his life.
You
Yes.
also, you had talked about an incident also where a lady in a house or somebody was trying to shoot you all. Can you talk
There was
about that?
an older lady who was protecting her son. Her son was a bomb setter. He was setting bombs. We went into the house. We were trying to get through some double doors inside the house. The lady at some point picked up her son's AK and was firing through the door. Missed our heads by inches. I mean, literally,
Well, maybe
if
that's what he was
any of us
confused
had just turned
about.
our heads, some of
This
us
whole
wouldn't be
case
here.
has been a big
The
confusion. That's why
lady,
we need that's why we
her
need the
son got the
sarcasm
AK
font.
and proceeded to start shooting towards
Yes,
the
I
door on
believe
his way out.
Ramstein is
Blew her
a
elbow
deploying
off.
and a medical
Literally
base as
shot her
well.
elbow off. We didn't see this happen, but when we went through the door, she was laying there and her arm is just
Very good point,
barely hanging
Gigi.
on.
Yeah.
While the rest of us went and hunted down the son who was
And I
now
believe
trying to
that he's
shoot
a
at us.
good man. He just
Darren,
got caught up in a stupid situation that anybody could have seen a mile away, but he got caught up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we've all been there. We've all done stupid things for love. It just it never got this far, and you have
I
to
mean, just like slash a tire or something.
yeah, you have to wonder how it got this far. Like how
Bust
it
the window out.
yeah, I mean, that's what I don't get. If you sat down with him and his lawyer wasn't trying to win his case and he just said, "What the actual F, dude? Just how?" I believe they can give recommendations. I think that, the judge still has final discretion, but let me look that up while I get this to play again.
stopped and made sure that that woman lived because she was bleeding out right there, not just a little bit. She was gonna expire. The blood was on its way out. She is alive today and still has her arm, whether she can use it or not, because that man took the time to sit down and bandage her up, sit her down, take her vitals, and maintain her until somebody could get there, like an ambulance or something, to take her to a hospital. And while the rest of us were doing our jobs of, hunting down these guys, that's what Darren's priority was. His priority was to make sure that he took care of the people who were injured.
In, as a result of the blast where he brought you back to life, did that lead to you having to leave the military?
I ended up being medically boarded. I retired in 2010. It took a few years for my recovery and for everything. I also have PTSD with a brain injury. I had broken bones. Yes, I ended up having to leave.
Cross-examination.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Underwood, just a few questions?
Yes,
So yeah, as you just described, you were seriously injured in that explosion that day
yes,
where they showed the photos, correct?
correct.
And Mr. Lopez, he was trained as a medic and it sounds like he did his job in the military.
Did a very
That was
good.
his job, correct?
He also helped. I mean, there were times that if
It's just a yes or no question,
yes,
Mr.
yes, he
Underwood.
did. Sure.
He did his job, okay. And how long were you in there total in the military?
I was in the Army for 24 years.
In the Army for 24 years, okay. And you also suffer from PTSD and TBI, is that correct?
Correct.
And you guys have remained friends since both of you have left the military?
Say again?
You and he have remained friends since both of you have left the
Absolutely.
military.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Appreciate it. No further questions.
She asked you if he was just doing his job, but he also went above and beyond that, didn't he?
He would take care of the family members. We'd have little flus, little aches and pains. Sometimes a dog might be not feeling good. He was our, hey, Darrin, what's going on here? You know, what do you think? What's your opinion? Kind of like an advice nurse before we would go to the doctor or the emergency room and to find out, you know, what's wrong with my dog? Do you think it's something? No, just give him some charcoal, or, you know, it's just stomach, or, you know, I don't think it's the flu. I think she's got a cold for one of my daughters. And that really helped out a lot because we knew that we didn't always have to be worried about something. We had somebody to call that wasn't just somebody I worked with. This was my close friend. This was my brother that I could call, and he was like a member of our family. And it was like having a son-in-law or a brother that's a
That better be.
doctor or a nurse.
I forgot to ask you, did you said you stayed in contact with him up until he was arrested?
Up until he was arrested, just before he was arrested in that December of 2001, I think it was, or yeah, 2001. We had breakfast, and we tried to go to breakfast. He had been very distant for a while, but 2001, he was trying to get back with us.
So there was a time where after he came back from deployment that,
2019,
maybe?
2019. I'm sorry, 2001. That whole time with COVID and everything, just
2019 to 2020,
Right.
around that time.
right. 2020. Yeah.
You all would try to meet earlier, earlier in time, we try to get together often, but closer to 2020, he started to withdraw a bit from the group.
He was very withdrawn, especially right after he got out. There were a lot of little things that happened. I can't recall all of them because there were so many little things that just happened. And we had a lot of things like our buddy Don had committed suicide, and those things that really made it so that a lot of us withdrew, but he was a little bit more withdrawn. Where I talked to my buddy Donovan and Phil, Darrin was more secluded. He put himself more into the stay out of our lives kind of thing, where we tried to call him all the time, but he just really stayed withdrawn.
Nothing further.
May this witness be finally excused.
No objection, Chair.
Very good. Sir, you may stand down. Mr. Sanchez?
Call Donovan Garland to the stand.
Oh, wow.
Are we doing everyone who exploded in the explosion?
Say
I-
that again.
look-
I love that.
Are we doing everyone
Okay,
who?
please, before you have a seat on the witness stand, turn and face me. and raise your
Well,
right
I mean,
hand. Swear the testimony you're
The
about
best
to give will be the
sentence
truth.
I've ever heard
I
in
do.
my life.
Please have a seat.
well, I mean, his lawyer said he literally exploded in the explosion. And I was like, then why are we even here? Because
Yeah,
he's
like how is
exploded.
he still here
You may
then?
proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Sir, can you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Donovan Garland, Donovon, Garland.
And where are you from, Donovan?
Originally from Upper East Tennessee. Right now I live in Clarksville, Tennessee, about an hour north of Nashville.
Is that close to Cumberland Furnace?
It's a different county. It's about a 45-minute drive, yes.
And obviously you know Darrin Lopez.
I do.
And there's some things you want the jury to know about him, isn't that true?
That's true.
I don't
You
probably.
served with him in Special Forces also.
I did.
And in what
These
capacity?
are some very short
We were
special
teammates
forces.
from
There
Was he in the
the
Smurf team?
spring of 2003
little babies.
until he left the team sometime in
Well, so
um,
SEAL teams have a shorter team called the Smurf team. So
middle of 06. I
just
believe.
asking.
2006. And then at a future time, 2008 to 2009 timeframe, Darrin was
no,
a
I have
multi-purpose
not.
canine handler, and he was attached to my Special Forces detachment.
Wait a
where we
minute.
worked.
How do you go from being a medic to a multi-purpose canine handler?
That's
You
a
know
lot.
what? No,
That's a
I'm
lot.
not going to ask. Because Mr. Mo went from being a med det or a medical person to being a logistics guy, so I guess I can't really well, and then a media coordinator, so who knows?
For an 8-month period together on that deployment.
And we've heard some testimony about the explosion.
Yes.
Were you there for that?
I was on the
You
base. I was
explode
with the
in the
team. I
explosion?
asked to go on that patrol, but I was not with them. No.
Were you with him at other occasions where
He
there was
exploded.
Yeah.
He
many.
exploded.
Where was that?
So each of our deployments to Iraq was about a 7.5 to 8 month time
Oh,
period.
poor guys. I don't want dogs to
Generally,
come back
we went to a
sad
different
and
place in the
scared.
country each deployment. Our first one was Baghdad. I was a new guy, so I was the junior communication sergeant attached to that team. Darrin was at the time
Y'all
the
don't
junior
know I'm a
medic.
big animal person. I'll
And so
cry.
in that capacity, we did patrols.
You're a little
we
bit crackly. I don't know if
detained bad
your
guys,
wire is.
That sometimes there was
It's my
some
phone.
enemy combatants that got killed.
Oh,
But specifically on our second trip in Iraq to Samara, kind of the center of the country, we've been in there about 6 weeks on the ground. Our team house was a 2-building compound, and we received. We became attacked on the 18th of June, about 7:30 in the evening. The compound was isolated by vehicles that blocked off the road. We started receiving small arms fire, indirect fire, and RPG fire. We had Peshmerga in one building, our guys in another building. At that time, our detachment was 8 of 12 guys. And then we had 2 squads of U.S. infantry and about 16 Peshmerga, and we're the only U.S. presence in a town of about 400,000 people in about a 9-kilometer square. And anyway, so this was a sustained fight that entire night. And on 2 sides of our compound was a local cemetery, which gave us some standoff. The enemy started using RPGs,
What
And-
does that mean?
a rocket propelled grenade, and they were using them as an indirect fire, kind of lobbing them up because our positions were on the rooftops. And they got lucky, and I had an RPG round air burst. I was in a sandbag bunker with a Peshmerga crew and a machine gun. And the shrapnel from that RPG round hit me in the back of the head. It knocked me down, took a chunk out of my ear, and I was bleeding. I tried self-aid. I wasn't unconscious. But the team leader launched Darrin as the medic. I met them down in a stairwell. We went to our little aid station. He treated me, and he put seven stitches in my head and a heavy dose of morphine. That fight continued for another 36 hours. It was done by the second night. Our team was accredited with killing over 200 enemy combatants in that cemetery.
Well,
At the end of,
Let me stop you there.
okay,
So you all were in a position where you couldn't leave.
correct?
The enemy, were they attacking you from both sides?
3 sides,
3 sides.
yes,
So you had to fight the enemy off from 3 different sides.
correct.
Hoping that some help would come.
Yeah, we asked, they didn't come.
So you were sitting there, almost, I don't want to use the term dead duck, but you were
isolated,
isolated, being attacked from all 3 sides.
northeast and south.
Sir, don't
The river was to
smile.
our west.
How many days did it take for you to fight off the enemy or get
This
rid of
was a 2-day defensive battle, 2 days, 18, 19 June.
it? And we say it's 2 days, I mean, it's 24 hours, right?
They started in the evening and they went till about an hour or 2 after first light when the sun started getting warm. And then they would shut it down for the day, kind of refit, and then they started again the second evening.
And eventually the rescue come?
Yes, after that second day, they kind of broke. They made a tactical mistake. Basically, the conventional force commander had Air Force aircraft ahead. The enemy combatants turned RPGs and shot them at the aircraft straight up. The aircraft electronics registered the RPG as surface to air missiles, okay, which allowed the pilots of the airplanes, it changed the rules of engagement for them, and so they could do gun runs on the enemy in town. Because the enemy was fighting from the city, the populated environment, we were limited, the commanders were limited fairly on what their escalation of force and response could be.
And during that time, he helped you with the shrapnel.
Yeah, he sewed me back up, yes.
Now, to saying, well, he's just doing his job. Is that what it meant to you? Just him doing his job?
No, it's far beyond that, far beyond that.
Let me show you something that you sent me regarding Darrin. Is this what, did you send me this magazine that you sent me?
Yeah, Special Operations Medical Journal, yes.
Okay. And he was featured on the cover of that, right?
Yes,
Just doing his job, right?
doing his job, yeah.
Right. At this point, I would ask him-
What a terrible waste of a life. He did all of these awesome things, and then because of
Submitted for all purposes, you may publish.
So they featured him in the
did that woman just say Jesus? All right, we're having to back Nate. Because I think this woman might have just epically rolled her eyes and severed her spine. But let's see this.
Number 30.
Submitted for all purposes, you may publish.
Yeah, I believe she said, "Oh my God, Jesus."
On the cover
Correct,
for going above and beyond his job.
correct.
Are we not going to get to see it on the Elmo? I wanted to see his magazine cover.
Now, we've heard already testimony about some of the trauma that Darrin had gone through post-service.
Yes,
You had talked about a situation where, was it a friend of yours or somebody that was a house invasion?
yes.
Were you present for that?
I was not present for that, no.
Was Darrin present for that?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And just briefly remind the jury what that was about.
Darrin,
Your Honor, he wasn't present for it.
Objection sustained.
Yeah, he wasn't present for it. He was
Did
out
you
of the
talk to him
country.
about it afterwards?
And the who? Mr.
Did Donovan talk to Darrin?
no, I did not.
Did he ever share his feelings about it?
No, he did not.
Yeah, they all stood by the campfire and talked about their feelings. It is appropriate. I'll
Talk
allow
about
it.
Also, the trauma that he went through when your friend and service member, Donald Stutzman?
Stutzman, yes.
Stutzman. Now, earlier in closing arguments, I think the name Donovan Garland
Yes,
was named as the person who committed suicide.
right.
That's you. That's Donovan.
Yes.
So you're here. But this is a copy of the
Yeah,
Memorial flyer.
memorial flyer.
I really hope
and,
that
and you brought
because we really have two competing things. I applaud this man for his service and everything, but you have a completely innocent guy who is just going to take out his dogs, and regardless of whether this guy knew anything about this guy, he still made a choice. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you can't outrun it. Maybe knock off some of this time and work a deal with the feds to where he can maybe touch grass once again or do some PSAs like don't listen to crazy women.
that because you wanted the jury to see that. Right?
Yes.
At this time, I would ask you, the defendant's exhibit number 29.
No objection.
Defense 29 is admitted, you may publish.
Thank you. Who is the person in this picture in defense exhibit number 29?
That's Donald Stutzman, our former teammate. And we served together, me being Darrin, myself, Greg, Phil, and Donald Stutzman, served on ODA 575 for those first 3 deployments to Iraq.
How did he died by suicide?
He did.
How did that affect Darrin? Do you know?
Greatly. Darrin at the time was and group as the
Sal, let me
one of
look
the
that up
canine
and
handlers.
see.
And Darren's daughters and Donald Stutzman's daughters were close. And so Darrin and his wife Rebecca, in an unofficial capacity, served as the unit's casualty assistance officers, helping the family go through that hard time.
I pass the witness.
Ms. Mitchell,
I have no questions for this witness, Your Honor.
may he be finally excused.
Yes.
Very good, sir. You may stand down. Please watch your step. Call your next witness, please.
Summer Nelson.
Afternoon, ma'am. If you would please come to the front of the courtroom. And before you have a seat, could you please face me and raise your right hand? Swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth. Please have a seat. We respond to your questions first from Mr. Sanchez, perhaps also Ms. Mitchell in front of you. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Ma'am, can you please state your full name for the record, please?
My name is Summer Nelson.
And where are you from? Where did you come from?
I came from South Carolina. I'm originally from Arizona, but my family lives in Tennessee, and that's home.
If you mind pulling the microphone a little closer to you, you have some.
Sorry.
But you live right now in South Carolina.
I do.
And you flew in to be here today to be able to tell the jury about your father, right?
I did.
So is Darrin your biological father?
He is not my biological father.
Do you consider him your father anyways?
He is the only father I've ever had.
When did Darrin come into
Yes,
your life?
very much so.
When I was 7.
Do you remember him coming into your life?
I do. I remember my mom bringing home this guy who I thought was the biggest nerd I'd ever seen in my life.
And,
Facts and evidence, I'll allow it.
I was a little, I don't know who this person is, but eventually he became my father.
Involved in your life?
Absolutely.
He was gone a lot, right?
He was.
There
When you
are
come
so
home,
many mitigating
Where do you get
factors.
involved?
My dad was very involved in my life when he was home. He'd help me with school. He would,
I know, lapel mics.
when I was a cheerleader, he would come
He's
out
the
and
worst.
be the biggest cheerleader for me and my team. He had special shirts made for him, my younger sisters. I mean, he was very supportive of my
Oh my
of
God,
me wanting
airbrushed
to do
shirts.
sports
I
and be a
remember those
cheerleader.
jams.
I love
Did he
them.
nourish your love for school?
He did.
What way?
Anytime that I would have to, write essays or anything for school,
So this would be one of Darren's bonus daughters. When he met his first, or well, I guess his wife, she had 2 daughters from a previous relationship. I think they went on to have 3 other daughters, but
She's not biologically his.
yeah, she's not biological.
he would, be there. And if I had any problems, he would,
Sal.
make sure that I felt good and that he felt good about my schoolwork. And school was, I was very prideful with my school. I took it very seriously. He gave me books to read. He really nourished my love for reading. I'm still an avid reader. It's a way that I escape. Books that he gave me were very important to me. He just, a lot of my personality and a lot of the things that I have taken, he's really nurtured and been a part of.
Salbert,
Back.
back.
in
Now,
his face.
there came a time when he finally came back of disability, did you have interactions with him at that point?
I did.
You had mentioned that there was a time when you started to see a bit of a spiraling in him. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it had to do something with a dog. Is that true?
I would say that, yeah, that's true.
Explain to the jury what that was.
Oh, was she the girl
My
that was?
father spent the second
Oh.
half of his deployments as a dog handler. He would be
Was
attached.
she
to
the same
different
one you were
teams,
talking about the
and
other day?
he was given a dog that was trained
Well,
and
I thought that
that was
One
like
of his daughters.
and upset, and we were talking about her. It looks like the same girl with her hair up.
Yeah, I don't know because I know one of his daughters, his first granddaughter, I know passed away suddenly, I think of a drowning. But I think he was deployed on all of these times that these bad things happened. I could be very wrong. I mean,
And
Yeah.
given to him to go in and do all the things, basically. I called her my little war dog when she was sent home with him.
What was the name of the dog?
Her name was Ezra.
Ezra.
Mhm.
So this dog was with him in Iraq?
She was with him in Iraq for the last 3 deployments, and when he was home, she was with him.
So when he retired, the dog was also retired?
It took a little longer for them to officially release her from the military, but yes, she was retired as well.
As a matter of fact, Ezra had a higher rank than Darrin, right?
She did. She has her own award plaques.
She has a Purple Heart too, right?
She does.
Or she had a Purple Heart.
She did.
Does anybody still have that, those awards for Ezra?
I'm not sure.
How did you see the effect of Ezra affecting Darrin?
My father was devastated when he lost his dog. She was his only really constant for those last 3 years that he was, or 3 deployments. You know, she was with him with every event. They were a team.
As a matter of fact, even when you mentioned the story when you went to Disneyland.
Right. Not me. I did not go to Disneyland with them because I was a grown up and out of the house and could not get myself there. But they would go, my family would go to Disneyland, or Disney World, sorry, pretty much every year. And he took that dog with him in her little tactical vest and her Mickey Mouse ears.
Aww.
So that's
Jamie
when
needs
you
to hear
first
this
saw the
tactical
beginning of his
vest
downward
Mickey
I'm here.
ears.
When did it get
Oh, I
worse?
know.
Was it when
I try to snack
your
and
mom
turn off the
left?
thing so I don't crunch and chomp on screen.
At
And
the time I was traveling out of state, I was hearing a lot of things from back home.
So cute.
When I would come home, my dad really preferred that I stayed with my aunt. It was almost I would come to the property to pick him up for us to go to lunch or something, and he would be at the top of the property, and this is acres up, waiting for me because I don't know if he didn't want me to go down into the house or whatnot, but he just was. I wasn't even able to come into the house anymore.
I can understand
Were you
that.
concerned for him?
I was very concerned for my father.
John
And
Kerry
then that was
probably.
after your mom left.
That was after my mom left.
Did you try to stay in contact with them?
I
So
did.
cute. I would do it.
Hard or easy?
It was
My
very
dogs
hard.
have sweaters.
I would text him. Sometimes I would get responses. I would call. I wouldn't always get an answer. There would be times where I would get a hold of him and I'd be like, you need to work on this. Like, I need to know that you're okay and everything's, that you're doing okay. And he would be okay for a couple of weeks and then it would just fall right back off.
Now, when he was in jail, were you his last contact? Are you the only person he called that you know of?
I'm not the only person that he called. I am the only person that he has remained constantly in contact, not constantly, consistently in contact with.
And did you all talk about the fact, or did you all talk about him did you talk to him when he realized that that the person that died, Jamie Faith, that was killed, was not the person that Jennifer portrayed to him?
I am actually the person who made him aware that he would be receiving this information. And I gave him the information I was given.
And how did that go?
He was devastated.
You made a comment about
He
Jamie's daughter.
he did. Sorry. He basically said that he took him, the equivalent of him for me, away from Amber.
Okay, this is actually good for him. I mean,
Yeah.
because he might not be the best conveyor of feelings, but through her, he is able to show that he did understand and has remorse for what he did, since he seems to be the most shit conveyor of feelings.
No questions.
May this witness be found excused.
No objection.
Ma'am, you may stand down. You're excused. Mr. Sanchez,
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at this time we would rest.
any rebuttal?
No rebuttal.
Very good. Members of the jury, it's customary in our law and procedure to take a break at this point. So if you would please go back to the jury room and await further instructions. I would say at 2:15, be back in there, everybody at once. That's in about 15 minutes, maybe closer to 17. And we'll see you then. All rise for the jurors. Please don't discuss the case and please don't do any independent research.
And we're a little behind, so we might come right into them being back, or fairly
Supposed to.
shortly. Yeah. So, chat, what do you think? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I've been trying to look it up, and I know you're going to be shocked, but Google is not the easiest place to find, concise answers on how Texas state law works.
Yeah, like, is the jury going to decide this or is the judge?
So what I'm gathering from what I'm looking at, the jury can make suggestions. The judge can tell the jury to go to hell, but the jury can basically say, like, "Hey, there's these do the mitigating factor," and I don't Sal. No one has Ask Jeeves anymore. Do the I wish they did, because Ask Jeeves seemed to be smart. Jeeves was awesome.
Sal, I love when you just come in clutch
Yeah, I think
with something. Well, I didn't know if like they're actually going to deliberate on it or if it's just,
well,
I don't know.
this might take the longer amount of time. I mean, now that I look at it, this might take, they might have all been okay with, guilty of murder. It might be that they had two people, and I believe they were before, or the one was the dance instructor before break. So that was on Baker's channel prior to the break. And that was when he, again, the dance instructor, I guess, is acting as point person for the family. James Faith, the real husband, has a mother surviving him and a sister that was older, neither of which showed, but I think it's because it's much too difficult for them to show up. And then after break, when I started up, there was a coworker of James, and then we went right into the defense, and the defense brought in all of his war buddies, which he did a great job. I mean, all the stuff that they talked about, very, very awesome. Yeah, if the daughter had it's very fortunate for him that the other daughter, daughter of Jennifer, didn't turn up on the stand.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, I don't know. That's got to be a messed up situation for that poor girl.
I know.
Amy wasn't her biological dad, but still. And your mom, like, admitted to doing all these horrible things to kill your father. Like, ugh, I couldn't imagine.
Well, I think okay, are they back now, or
Sounds like it.
yeah. Oh, I did not. Maybe I did. Baker, it is very possible I didn't, because I thought you were wanting to go to sleep before the shat face for Charity, but I am sending you one now. And welcome back, Baker,
Well, thank
our
you for
fearless.
jumping to Dave's because I got a link sent, so I pressed the first one I thought was you. So I was on Dave's and thought, well, that was weird. You Texas people, how much can I do for this one?
I don't know.
It's just we need to take our stars and bars so we can do all the crimes. I gather that's how you measure crime in Texas.
All right.
Oh, I better turn this one off.
I know I always forget until there's an echo.
I had you on my iPad because I've been enjoying my Reacher show. I don't get that one. Hey, GG.
Thank you, Sheriff. Y'all may be seated. Both sides have rested and closed, members of the jury. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this trial, the law is very much a procedure. Same procedure is going to apply in this phase that did in the previous phase.
Okay. Before he goes into his spiel, Iris, we did have a question. So in Texas, is it a general rule that the jury gets to make recommendations on the sentence and then the judge takes those into account and then he makes his ruling, or is what the jury says goes, or how does that all work?
We might get lucky and he might explain it right now.
I know.
There is law that is applicable to the punishment phase that I'm going to read to you and also give to
And thank you
in the
in
form of
advance,
another
Iris,
jury
because you are
charge.
our Texas
Just
law
like in the
gal.
guilty or not guilty phase, it has all of the law necessary to enable you to reach a verdict on punishment, and there is a verdict form as the last page. It's 3 pages plus the verdict form, so it's not quite as long. The law does require that I read it to you, and I will do so now. State of Texas versus Darrin Lopez, cause number F2175024 in the 292nd Judicial District Court right here in Dallas County, Texas. Court's charge to the jury. Members of the jury, the defendant, Darrin Lopez, has been found guilty by you of the offense of murder. This court has received and accepted your verdict of guilty, and you will no longer concern yourselves with the innocence or guilt of the defendant. You shall now limit your deliberations under the law and the evidence in this case to the question of punishment, which it is now your duty to assess. Punishment authorized for the offense of murder is imprisonment in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for life or for a term not more than 99 years nor less than 5 years. In addition thereto, a fine may be assessed not to exceed $10,000. You are instructed that in assessing the defendant's punishment, you may take into consideration all facts and evidence admitted before you in the full trial of this case, in the law as submitted to you in this charge, and the charge heretofore given to you by the court. You are instructed that if there is any testimony before you in this charge regarding the defendant having committed offenses or bad acts other than the offense of which you have found the defendant guilty, you may not consider such evidence unless you find and believe beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed such offenses or bad acts, if any. The burden is upon the prosecution to prove such extraneous offenses or bad acts beyond a reasonable doubt. Prosecution's proof must exclude all reasonable doubt concerning the extraneous offense or bad act, page 2. Therefore, if you find and believe beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed an extraneous offense or bad act, then you may consider such evidence in assessing the defendant's punishment. If you do not so find, or you have a reasonable doubt as to whether the defendant committed an extraneous offense or bad act, then you may not consider such evidence, if any, in assessing punishment. You are instructed that the defendant may testify in his own behalf if he elects to do so, but if he does not do so, that fact cannot be taken as a circumstance against him, nor prejudice him in any way. The defendant has elected not to testify in the punishment phase of this trial, and you are instructed that you cannot and must not refer to or allude to that fact throughout your deliberations or take into consideration for any purpose whatsoever as a circumstance against the defendant. The length of time for which a defendant is in prison may be reduced by the award of parole. Under the law applicable in this case, if the defendant is sentenced to a term of imprisonment, the defendant will not become eligible for parole until the actual time served equals one half of the sentence imposed, or 30 years, whichever is less. Eligibility for parole does not guarantee that parole will be granted. It cannot accurately be predicted how the parole law might be applied to this defendant if sentenced to a term of imprisonment, because the application of that law will depend on decisions made by parole authorities. You may consider the existence of the parole law. You are not to consider the manner in which the parole law may be applied to this particular defendant. You are instructed that in determining the punishment in this case, you are not to discuss among yourselves how long the defendant will be required to serve any sentence you decide to impose. Such matters come within the exclusive jurisdiction of the Board of Pardons and Paroles and are no concern of yours. You are further instructed that your verdict must be unanimous and shall be arrived at by due deliberation and not by drawing lots or any other method of chance, nor shall you add any combination of figures and divide the answer thereto. Page 3. You are the exclusive judges of the facts proved, of the credibility of the witnesses, and of the weight to be given to their testimony, but you are bound to receive the law from the court, which is herein given you, and be governed thereby. When you have reached a unanimous verdict, the presiding juror shall fill in and sign the verdict form that conforms to your verdict, and then announce to the officer who has you in charge that you have reached a verdict, signed by me. Again, Honorable Brandon Birmingham, the presiding judge, the 292nd Judicial District Court, right here in Dallas County, Texas. Verdict form reads as follows. We, the jury, having previously found the defendant, Darrin Lopez, guilty of murder as charged in the indictment, unanimously assess the punishment of the defendant at confinement in Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a term of blank, either 5 to 99 years or life, and a fine of blank dollars, 0 to 10,000. And there's a spot for the presiding juror to sign and print his or her name, I guess her name. Now, or once that conforms to your unanimous verdict, it is my understanding that the state is going to waive their right to open this, which leads me to the Honorable Juan Sanchez on behalf of Darrin Lopez. Sir, this is your jury. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Ron. May it please the court, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your work on this case up to this point. I'm not going to quarrel with your verdict. If that's not your job now, it's our job to quarrel with your verdict. It's our job to point out to you things that you should consider in deciding what the proper sentence should be in this case. And for Darrin Lopez again, and especially now, this decision really needs to be based on your own individual moral assessment, not only of the case and of what you found him guilty of, but of also Darrin Lopez and when you look at his whole life. Okay. This is a huge range that the Texas legislature has given juries to deal with. 5 up to 99 to life, or anywhere in between, is what you can sentence Mr. Lopez to. And when you're doing that, you have to look at everything that you heard of in the first part of the trial, all the evidence you heard, all the witnesses that testified in front of you. But now you can look back all the way to the life that Mr. Darrin Lopez had and decide whether it's redeemable, whether he did anything good in his life that you would consider in deciding what the proper sentence should be. You can look at all that, because before you were just, like the state had said in jury selection, you only looked at a snapshot, just what happened on October 9th of 2021. That's all you're going to be looking at when you're in the first part of the trial. But now you get to look at everything. You get to look, everything is open for you to look at and consider. And when you do that, you have to do it with serious consideration. We all said that during jury selection that you would consider mitigating evidence, which is what we get to do at this point in the trial. If the state had anything bad they wanted to present against Mr. Lopez, anything other than what you found him guilty to, they had a right to do it. So don't get back there and think for some reason, hey, does he have a record we don't know about? Did he do something else that didn't have process? Because there isn't any, okay? Because if there was, these fine prosecutors would have brought it to you. I'm sure they would. So don't get back there and say to yourself, you know what, is there something we don't know? You've heard it all, okay? And so when you're doing that, You have to look at evidence relevant to a person's character, record, or circumstance of the offense, which you can still take into consideration, which might serve as a basis for a lesser sentence than you usually would give. And when we talk about mitigation, it's not an excuse. It's whatever you decide it's to be. It's an explanation as to how Mr. Lopez got here. No one's saying these are excuses for his actions. You're saying this is the world he was living in. This is a context in which it happened, and this is the condition he was in, based on his whole life that now you consider and that you've heard about. And what do you have in front of you? You have the fact that Mr. Lopez grew up in a military family, and that he served in the military faithfully and honorably. Not only did he serve and did his job, he went above and beyond that. And that's why we thought it was important for you to see the military awards that he had received. A Purple Heart, which represents him giving a part of his body for the country and all of us who sit here today. That's what the Purple Heart is. The Bronze Star, which is not an easy thing to get. And all those red tabs in those records indicate an award that he received for going above and beyond, not just doing his job. They don't give awards for doing your job. They give awards and commendations and medals for people who do more than what it's asked of them. That sacrifice themselves more than other people. And that's what he did. His friends from the Special Forces took a week out of their time to be here, to stand with him. They traveled from far away, as did his daughter. That itself should tell you and be worth something to you as a jury when considering it. When people are willing to take time out of their lives to come tell you something good about their friend, their comrade, or their father, that means that that person has some redeemable value still left in them. And I think you saw that when you were sitting here listening to the evidence. Another thing you can consider are the circumstances of the offense. We don't know what you, at this point, we don't really know what you believed, other than you decided that the state had proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and that you rejected the defense of another. You may have gone back there and said to yourself, you know what, we do believe that he was manipulated. We do believe that he was misled by Jennifer, but we just don't believe that the danger was immediate enough for him to do that. If you believe that, and you believe that he had noble intent, even though he broke the law in doing it, you can consider that in deciding what the proper assessment of the punishment should be. And no one can tell you otherwise, okay? You can look at the fact and take into consideration his good conduct in the military and his good conduct even before he was in the military. Again, I remind you, even if he was a juvenile, if you would have shoplifted a stick of gum, the state could have brought that to you. So because they didn't, you know for a fact he had never done anything wrong in his life up until this tragic day. And he's going to be punished for it. He knows he's going to prison. But what we're asking you to do is consider the proper sentence based on what you heard here today. He was a good father to Summer. Summer came here and told you about it. Even though she wasn't his biological daughter, he treated her as his actual daughter. He was involved in his daughter's lives. He was the cheer dad. He was all those things until he went to the military and he was damaged. You can take into consideration the fact that he was injured in service to the country. There's nobody that can tell you otherwise. And we're asking you to take that into consideration because I think the evidence showed you that was a factor in this case. So the same way it was an aggravating factor as far as him leading to the death of Jamie Faith, is also a factor in explaining, in mitigation, why we're here. You can take into consideration the fact that he did save lives. Mr. Underwood, who testified here today, is here today and sitting in this courtroom because of him. And that's something important. I mean, how many of us in our lives can actually say we've done something like that? That has to help in some way in your consideration of what the proper sentence should be. Take into consideration that he not only took care of his comrades, he took care of people who were trying to kill him. I don't know if I would ever be able to do something like that, but he did. again, going above and beyond what was expected of him. And one of the other things you can consider too, and I think it's important in this case, is that he did cooperate with law enforcement. He did cooperate with them. You heard Detective Barnes tell you that he cooperated in the prosecution of Jennifer Faith. And that should count for something. And I think it will once you go back there and consider it. So I'm going to remind you of a few things and talk to you about some things that when you're back there, the law never requires a certain verdict. You get to decide. I know the state may come up or ask for a certain number or the maximum, but it's up to you, not them, not us. And the law never requires a certain sentence. You get to decide based on the evidence you've heard and based on the mitigation that you've heard, what the proper sentence should be. And no one can tell you that you can't do that. There's no automatic sentences. It must be the result of meaningful deliberation. That means you all need to go back there and really talk about it, because this is probably the most important decision you've made in your life now. How long you sentence a man to prison? And you really have to talk about everything you've heard, not only in the first part of the trial, but in the second part of the trial, and discuss it. And then make a decision based on your individual moral assessment of what you've heard. And if you get to a point where, you say, this is what I think the proper sentence should be, and somebody else disagrees with you and says, well, I think it needs to be this. You're crazy. This is what it should be. You get to stand your ground. No one can make you change your vote. You can allow yourself to be talked into a different view. You can deliberate. That's what deliberation means, is that you talk to each other. But sometimes you can get to the point where, you know what, this is what I believe, and I'm going to stick to it. And you all told me during jury selection that that's something that you can do, and that's what we're asking you to do. And you base it, again, on your own individual personal view of the case. You're not to assess a sentence based on chance or averaging. It's in the jury selection. And what that means basically is you can't say, I want this number, I want this number. Let's just meet in the middle. You can meet in the middle, but only if you really believe that that's what the proper sentence should be. Does that make sense? That's why that's in the jury chart, because we just can't be flipping coins back there. Thank you, Your Honor. And all 12 jurors must agree on the actual number of years. You all have to vote as a group, but also as an individual, and it has to be unanimous. And so I'm not going to sit here, and I don't think the state's going to tell you what you have to do, because I'm leaving it up to you. We're leaving it up to you. That's your job, not ours. We presented all the evidence that we could at this point, and presented all the witnesses that we could, introduced all the evidence we could. So it's going to be your job to decide what's proper in this case. And we ask you to take into consideration Mr. Lopez's service, his years of good conduct, his years of being a good family man, being a good father. And we ask you to take that into consideration and make that decision that you can live with when you leave this courthouse. I know you all are reasonable people, and you're going to take this decision serious. And we're looking forward to hear what your sentence should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Court recognizes the Honorable Brady Mitchell on behalf of the state. Ma'am, this is your jury. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. Please, the court counsel. Well, first of all, let's make it clear. I mean, any cooperation came after he got caught, months after, when he was caught.
Oh, this lady.
It is terrifying that he planned and pulled off this murder without any basis in reason or an investigation. That he was that quick to plan a murder, drive 10 hours and go and shoot this man. It is terrifying that he did this to this man he has never met in person. It is terrifying that he laid in wait, anticipating, and pulled it off in a public street.
Oh, man.
30 a.m. when people are taking their kids to school and going off to work. But he didn't care about that. He cared about Jennifer Faith. It is astonishing the speed that he pulled off that execution.
Oh my
And
God.
astonishing how he drove back home, back forth, and back
Good.
to his life.
Jeez.
She
The one
finally
time
found
she
the mic.
uses
Back to the relationship, back to everyday grocery store shopping, back to doing what all of us do, back to ordering sex toys for him and Jennifer,
Well,
back to
well,
all
when
of
you
that.
say it like
that's what you
that.
do.
No remorse. No remorse. In fact, they don't talk about it. It's just done.
No, it won't be a mistrial.
Now it's us.
I can't see any other way than the judge will hammer
It's
them
astonishing how he
till they
was
find some kind
on
of.
the group text
They'll
with
probably like
Jen and
compromise.
Rob and Jeremy and all of
He's
her
getting
friends.
40 to 50 years or something like
And
that.
he's inserted in and starts acting like he's one of the group. He's now with Jennifer, and they're going to be together. Ladies and gentlemen, with your verdict, you will not be saying anything about how you don't support the troops or you don't think they do a fantastic job, because they all do.
Not all of
You
them.
are saying nothing about that. You're saying nothing about the fact that when he was in the military, he evidently did his job well. There are a lot of people who go through, unfortunately, service members who go through explosions, and a lot of servicemen and women who are discharged with disability.
Okay, is Texas just against buttoning the top two buttons? Like, it is a no button,
Oh, it's hot.
even women.
You mean it's hot down there? Maybe that's why.
True. I feel sorry for the two defense attorneys who have to wear the buttons up the top. Like, button down for
Who don't go and
everyone.
execute a man. I want you to take that into consideration when you're assessing a sentence. I certainly won't agree with Mr. Sanchez and won't give you a sentence, but I certainly believe the minimum is nowhere near what is appropriate for this. For taking his life, his 49-year-old life. And this man didn't have a chance to fight for it. He couldn't even treat him like a man. He was just here and then he was gone, leaving his friends and family, his family devastated, his coworkers missing him. I want you to think about Jamie Faith. And I know you'll do the right thing. And I really appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Members of the jury, you'll retire to consider your verdict. The same rules apply about asking for evidence. We'll send those exhibits that were admitted in both phases of this trial back to you for your consideration unless they were admitted for record purposes. And the alternates will be in the same place they were before. Court's in recess pending the verdict. All rise for the jury.
True. It can get really hot.
Yeah, usually even if AC is on and you're in a small room with a lot of people, it's still warm.
Yes. Yeah, they sent letters. So I'm not saying I knew people who did this, because you're not supposed to do this in the military. But if boyfriend and girlfriend went to basic training around the same time, they would put them in different basic trainings. And you weren't supposed to write letters to two privates can't write letters to each other in basic training. So you would write a letter home to your relative who would send it to their basic training, and, vice versa. So they were doing the, I'll send a letter to my relative who will send it on back to you kind of stuff. Yes, James Faith was the husband, but he went by Jamie. Yeah. Yeah. We are going to be asking David the next time he is white girl wasted if we can get the FOIA for these these emails.
Also,
It's like, I have the word.
when he's white girl wasted, we got to watch these fun little text messages so he can see them.
Yeah,
They
'cause
were still buying like, weren't they? They were still like talking about their BDSM stuff after he died.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
then
she
she
was
was
helping
like
him
trying to get,
financially, as far as I can
yeah,
remember. She sent the television for the kids and gave him access
Yeah.
to credit cards and stuff like that. That's why she pled guilty to kind of having him as a hitman.
yeah, because she was buying him gifts, Shelly, and like letting him use credit cards and stuff. And then she was like telling him to delete things and stuff. So, but they were never together. Like they never actually ended up together.
Yeah.
He did not get any meow.
No. Although there were some really creepy texts, though I don't know how they were doing what they claimed to be doing when they were typing on the phone.
Yeah.
Well, power of imagination is a strong thing,
There
especially
you
if you
go.
can remember her like the one she was 30 years ago.
You can cultivate those feelings with your mind. So,
I bet you can.
yes, you can.
So, what are we thinking? We were all off on. Are we thinking what, like 6 minutes for this?
This will probably be the longer one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't we see that? We saw that with the Burgos trial too, didn't we?
Yeah,
It
Yeah.
took
I
like
think.
2 or 3 hours to find him guilty, and they came in the next day to
Like all day, almost.
yeah.
Half a
So
day.
Yeah.
you could probably
Just
you could probably shut this one down and sit and watch your kids run around, your cat having flatulence.
Pretty much.
I would play this one by ear because I don't know. We have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
it's
it
way harder
actually.
to. If I was going into it, I think I would do like we have with the poll. Say, okay, we can go from 5 to 100. Is anyone near 5? And then if no hands goes up, is anyone near 100? And then maybe take it down and say, okay, the middle of that's 50 years. How many think it should be around that area? Okay, those of you who said no, how many of you think it should be less and how many think it should be more? That's the way I would do it.
Yeah, there was a trial I watched and they couldn't decide, so they just like literally just went down the middle.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a human thing because we want to see a pattern, and it's very
Yes.
easy for everyone to say, "Well, I can't go that low, I can't go that high." We meet in the middle. My fantasies: stop putting cheese in danishes.
Who asked about that?
What Jungmin
Okay.
wanted to know my fantasies.
And guys, I will probably not. I know there was a really cool suggestion of watching the Wild Bill sentencing. If I did not have to get my youngest daughter, I would, but it's about a 30-minute drive. So I'm going to probably hop off here uh pretty soon, and then I will uh keep my ears open for the sentence. I don't know. It's so weird when they have the sentencing like right then, like with the Letitia stuff,
Yeah.
because I'm used to it taking a couple days.
Yeah, do that, or maybe if someone is very vocal about where they stand, say, "Well, I think it's way too little to give him 20 years. Why?" Well, this. Well, okay, I can see the point that, and you say that 60 years is too much. Why? Well, this, and this, and again, it's human nature. We'll always try to split it down the middle. It's kind of like
Yeah.
there's a book called the Bible or something like that, and there's a guy who talks about carving a kid on the middle to see who really is the parent. It's an old book. Probably some of you might have read it.
You're such a nerd. Gee. I was over here like, that is not, no, that is in another. And I was like, I am ridiculous. To which I always say half a kid is always okay.
Yeah, you can have more. Chrissy, any kind of cheese should not be put in any kind of pastry. That's why I hate cheesecake. Reindeer, thank you for spelling it out because I don't think Mo really got it in the beginning.
Look, I'm naturally blonde. I dye my hair red to let everyone know that I am crazy. That is my gift to the world. You know, it'll probably take 30 minutes just because I'm
If
hoping it'll take a little bit longer.
the
So
second
I
Mo puts the key in the car, Jamie's
pretty
gonna text
much.
me.
I'm gonna be like, hey, all right, well,
Well, I will see you all
Nope.
later if this does come back later. I will try to be on Nick's Shat Face for Charity fair for a little bit. I've got, family stuff and it is the weekend before school starts. So it is
yay.
all the crazy, all the trying on pants, and yes, you have to wear shirts every day,
Now you have to
all
wear shirts.
day.
Shirts are prison.
Yeah. Well, we finally got out of pants are prison, so then we decided that shirts are still prison. So,
Yeah, but
it is what
everyone,
it is.
keep an eye out. Mo will probably be doing the heavy lifting if and when there is a possible sentence, which will be around 5 minutes after she starts her car.
Pretty
Nope.
much. They'll be like, "Hey, you want to get out here early?" Yeah, always early. And then
Yeah, it's Friday.
So,
They ain't gonna waste no time if they can't. So
yes. I will see you all in a little bit tomorrow if I don't see you all tonight because they haven't come back, which is going to be a weird thing to me. Then I will see you on Stabby Day
okay.
or
Which
Stabbier
will
Day.
be, I think we'll do it at, I have to think, I have to tend the bar tomorrow, so kind of like last week, 8:30. Is that okay, Jamie? Mo?
8:30 is
That's yeah, that works for me.
I have to figure something. That's 2:30 my time. Yeah, that would be
Okay.
perfect. I'll be out of the bar between 1 and 2, so then I could grab a bite to eat.
Sounds good. I will see you all later. Have a great weekend if I don't see you again. And like, subscribe, go to Baker, go to Jamie, all the things. Bye.